you so much for joining me today on the Financial Planner Life podcast. How are you?
I'm good, Sam. Thank you. How are you doing?
I'm really well. I've had an amazing week, actually. A really, really great week. I delivered some really lovely news yesterday to the team at Recruit UK that, due to the economic downturn and the problems that we're experiencing from a financial perspective, that we'd given them all a really hefty pay rise.
Lovely.
Yeah. So, and it was amazing to do because, these pay rises come out of my profits, obviously. So it affects essentially my pocket. So being in a position where I'm able to give people some extra money, especially in a city like Bristol, which is becoming super duper expensive, they were so grateful for it. And it was such a valuable thing to do. And I implore any company that employs people to be looking at their salaries at the moment, because you might be all right financially, but the staff that are working for you and building that income for you might not be. And from doing that, it was a real eye opener, and the gratitude and the buzz that we've now got, is wonderful. So yeah, that's really filled my cup up today, this week. So yeah, I'm in a great place.
Nice. I like that. It shows you care. It shows you're thinking beyond, beyond thinking about your staff with that sort of stuff.
100%. And I think, in the recruitment industry anyway, it's highly competitive. So we have to be seen to be having the best benefits. We have to be seen to be having, good well-being propositions, things like unlimited holidays we brought in, good bonus structures, fair, transparent career progression models, things that we do in recruitment. And what recruitment companies are doing now are revolutionary when it comes to the hiring process. We're really the ones that are taking the chances and the risks in a profession that was predominantly stack it high, sell it cheap. Yeah. It was terrible once, terrible. But these days, it's so competitive that we have to have that trust and flexibility. And I think there's a lot of what we're doing can be taught to the financial planning profession, because I hear a lot in the financial planning profession of archaic methods of employing people, really restrictive benefits packages and movement. Even the simple thing of working from home, the amount of paraplanners, administrators that have to be chained to a desk. Even a financial advisor I was talking to last week was chained to a desk, and he had a conversation. They were like, "We don't want to do this. We don't want you working from home, but we're going to trial it." And it was like, the guy's bloody been doing, he's a financial planner, been doing it for ages. Why does he have to be chained to a desk? It's madness.
Yeah, it's the old, you have to be seen at the desk, even if you're not actually working, you still have to be at the desk.
It's ridiculous. Isn't it?
Yeah. Mad.
But you're not for you though, because you run your own business, don't you? You're a director of your own business.
Yes.
Directly authorized. So we'll get into that in a bit, and the benefits and why you did that, and really sort of the pros to it. But I could imagine there are a few wobbly cons to it as well. Yeah. I feel you on that one. I understand that. I always love to kick off the podcast by really finding out a bit about how you got into the profession, because there's lots of people out there that want to progress their careers, obviously within the profession that are already in it, but there's also people out there that are looking at the profession thinking, wonder if I want to be a financial planner. But historically, it's been difficult, isn't it, to get into the profession? It's been a tough route. And now we've got different routes, things like administration, paraplanning, different roles within the profession. You don't just have to be a financial planner. You don't have to, that's not the only thing you can be. So there are these different roles, different entry points. So please do share with us today, if you can so kindly. First question is, how did you get into the profession?
Yeah, so, this is going back a few years, but it's actually a complete tangent for me because, I'd always been a keen sort of sportsman, loved my sport. Had an interest in business generally. My dad was an accountant, so I was sort of aware of the money side. But, when I sort of finished school, I came to the conclusion, I'm not quite sure what I want to do. Let's blend the two. So I ended up studying sports management at university, which was a mix of business and the sort of sports side, policy and behind the scenes and all of that. But, during my studies, I quickly realized that sport was more of a hobby for me. I didn't really see it as a career. I didn't really want to go down that route. And ultimately, I graduated during the great financial crisis of 2008-9, which is an interesting time to graduate. So not many sort of jobs going around at the time. So joined Aegon, basically with the first job I could get hold of, which was pension premium processing. So Sam, when you were making that pension contribution on a monthly basis, I was the guy sitting there in the green and black screen punching in that contribution from said employer, which would then sort of filter through into the system.
Gotcha.
Very sort of monotonous, but actually quite an interesting insight in behind the scenes.
Yep.
And because it was a relatively straightforward job, I tended to be quite efficient about it, work quite quickly, and then have all this kind of spare time. So he said, well, Keith, we do have sort of programs that, you can go study X, Y, and Z. And I came across the certificate in financial planning as it was at the time and thought, oh, that's quite interesting. And it intrigued me in the money side was interesting of it, but I also liked the idea that not quite clear on it, but I like the idea of that sort of people side of it as well. Could see this interesting blend that I thought, yeah, let's have a go at that. So started studying a certificate as it was at the time. So in a sense, I sort of fell into it, but saw sort of future career paths when I looked at it and saw actually ultimately I'd have to start at the bottom.
Yep.
So during my sort of studies, I worked through various guises. So from pension premium processing, I moved to a different company in their back office, doing the admin work. In sort of a legal firm, had a bolt-on wealth management side, and continued studying. So moved on to sort of diploma, and I'd always loved the idea. I didn't want to go straight into being an advisor, which some people sort of had down the old sort of broker route, if you like. I loved the idea of going through the different stages of a career. So when it got to the point, which is the ultimate vision of being a planner, and I'll come on to the sort of business owner point, but I like the idea of when I did reach that point, I already knew everything in behind. So I could really sort of back myself as an advisor because I know what it means to be a paraplanner, which I stepped into later on. I know what it means to be an administrator. So it means I could set expectations for clients quite well. And actually, then sort of work well as an advisor. It's not being an advisor that just then sort of throws this bump of paperwork off on someone without fully appreciating what it means. So I sort of worked through those sort of various stages. So admin roles for 3-4 years, paraplanning for another 3 or 4, and then eventually stepped into a hybrid role at Brew and Dolphin at the time. A mix of paraplanning, so doing the behind the scenes report writing work, and then a bit of advising as well. And it's at that point I then sort of jumped off to Pastures New over in Hong Kong. So stop me, Sam, or change tactics.
There's a couple of things. Yeah, a couple of things I picked up on there. I used to work for Aviva, so similar to being at Aegon, working with a product provider, and then working in the background. So my job was sort of I was trainer to the customer service team, training out those guys to get them to understand what a bond is, what a pension is, things like what A-Day was. When that happened, to be able to answer the questions of any customers that came through about their personal investment products without giving any advice. And on the side of that as well, we used to talk to financial advisors that were phoning up to get valuations and transfer evaluations and all that type of stuff. And I just I like that because I want to sort of echo that sometimes going in to a role like that and working within the processing side, it teaches you a lot about what goes on behind the scenes. And I think it's a very valuable place because if I look back when I worked for Aviva, a guy called Robert Harper, he's now chartered paraplanner, very senior chartered paraplanner. Richard McDaddy, that's been on the podcast, chartered fellow, senior partner at Evelyn and Partners, So these are people that I was sat next to that started their qualifications within these financial institutions. And at the time, it was pre-RDR like you. They didn't really know what they were doing or what they just had an option. They had something in front of them and a backing from the company to say, look, these qualifications might well take you somewhere. It might not be within our business. However, we're going to invest in you to do them. And it's very interesting. You don't have to always be 100% two-footed straight away in the financial planning profession. You can gain some experience and some qualifications by doing something a little simpler to ease you into it, to see if it's actually financial services that you're interested in, but also the skill sets you build around customer services, working with others, working to timescales, targets, attention to detail around administration. So yeah, it's good to hear that was your sort of grounding. And for me, it moved me into training and development. It didn't move me down the advice side. I did start the FPC qualifications at the time, but it wasn't the right time for me. It didn't excite me enough to become a financial advisor. And I moved more into training, development, and then recruitment. That was my sort of area. Interesting. Cool. Also, just how long were you, just for the continuity here and so people understand, how long were you working in administration, power planning, up into that hybrid role with a really great company like Brew and Dolphin? How long did it take you to get to that point of when you started to step into financial advice?
Yeah, so all in, so what, 2008, nine, that must have taken me maybe 6 years
Okay. Yeah.
within that sort of phase, broadly speaking, maybe slightly longer actually, marginally. Um, and within that space, it allowed me to build up my work experience
Mm-hmm.
within that space. But the beauty of it was that, you're essentially in a non-pressured role.
Yep.
So, broadly speaking, it was saying 9 to 5, or if there's pressure points, maybe a bit different, but allowed me to then pick up studies of interest early morning. So doing the diploma early morning, getting in there at 6:30 in the morning, studying before everyone else is in, and then also studying late at night, and knowing that I could just finish and leave it there and come back to it tomorrow, and allow me to go and sort of pursue my own sort of personal development. So it gave me the sort of balance of both worlds, where it ticked off the work side of it, and I was building up my knowledge and interest in that, as well as that sort of personal development side. So that, it gave me that sort of really big hook all in, which, worked perfectly, rather than perhaps being instantly thrust into the world of advising and suddenly having all this pressure, and then also doing exams and thinking, oh God, this is too much.
That's really interesting, because obviously the big focus at the moment, a lot around financial planning and getting into the profession, is like, how quickly can I pass my exams? How quickly can I actually become a financial advisor? And often there is that period of learning and understanding the environment. And the one thing I hear a lot of, and both routes have their benefits, one being down the admin power planner, the slower route, I would say, to becoming an advisor, to somebody going straight into an advice position and having to learn it all. And as you say, maybe not doing the power planning and admin and passing it over to somebody else. Now, the profession and how now businesses are structured does actually allow that to happen. They're far slicker businesses now that allow somebody to do that. But there's pros and cons, there's pluses to each side. The one that you've just mentioned there was that how old were you when you were doing that sort of studying and working in those capacities? How old were you?
So I would have been started that sort of age 22, 23.
Yeah.
And then that's sort of taking me forward for, yeah.
Which is acceptable, I think, around that age, to have an expectation of yourself as perhaps being a financial advisor at 22 years old, and there are ones out there that are doing it. But I think that relaxed approach to doing it, and the knowledge and experience that you gain whilst you're going through that, as you say, took away some of that pressure to have a bit more of a good work-life balance, but filled you full of knowledge. Yeah. So when you then hit that point of 26, 27, which I think is like a kind of change time for you as a human, you're kind of thinking, 30's approaching. Oh my God, 30's approaching. It's funny, actually, because I look back on that, I was more concerned about 30, and I've now passed 40, and I'm loving my 40s. I don't fear getting old. However, at that age, it's like, oh God, I've got to have this in place and this in place, and my career must be in place. But I think, take that foot off and think, well, what am I learning right now? Am I gaining the experience and the knowledge I'm required to then have a fulfilling 30s and 40s?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I completely agree, Sam. You almost need to just sort of back off a little. Like, age 22, who really knows himself at age 22? No one knows himself. You don't know. Maybe some people really have a set path, fine. But do you really know yourself deeply? I'm pretty sure you don't. And it took me to probably, into my 30s to really understand who am I, what do I value in life, what's important to me. A lot of that stuff's the personal side, but ultimately that drives what you do in work. It's very much, overlapping with each other. So how can you confidently say at such an early age, this is my career path? Some can, fine, okay, there are exceptions, but I just think we need to take the pressure away from ourselves and be open to trying different roles. It's like when we talk about sports people, actually the best sports people are the ones that went and tried 5, 6, 7 different sports and kept their hand in, and then eventually filtered it down to later life. They didn't just go down the football route from age 2. I think likewise in careers, and that's why it's quite interesting, people that come into the financial profession from other careers, from creative industries, or from government industries, and they can bring in their new, exciting, really interesting insights, which we need to refresh it and really sort of strengthen our brand in the community. So I think that's,
Yeah, I love what you said there. That's an absolute truth. And I've been working with second careerists a lot. And I love talking to marketers that then want to become financial planners, because they understand the psychology of marketing. They understand the part that a lot of financial planners are lacking. You can be, and I can take this we all can, yeah. We can be so absorbed within what it is that we're doing that we're not thinking outside of the task that we have in place. Bringing somebody in who's getting some life experience within a different sector is gold. I mean, teachers are fantastic at coming across into the financial planning profession. Why? Because they're great educators.
Yeah.
If you can teach a child to understand something in simplistic terms, therefore you can simplify financial services, which is full of jargon, full of really confusing facts and figures, and this mystification of, you've got to use me, because if you don't use me, you're going to fail, because I'm a magician who knows everything about how finance works. And what I'm loving as well is that you're a big advocate of jargon-free social media finance. Your goal is to educate people, to get them to understand things and not demystify, confuse them that they have to use your services, but more to kind of empower them to understand what it is they're actually doing. Can you just talk a little bit about that, actually, whilst we're here? Talk to me a little bit about what you do to bust jargon within financial planning.
Yeah, and this is about breaking down barriers, so that it's that classic. There's this massive hurdle, a massive mountain actually between the advisor who's sitting up there high in the mountaintop and little Joe Blogg's client down below looking up thinking, what's this? What is that? Trust me, just climb the mountain. What am I doing? I don't understand any of this. And we presented ourselves in that way in the industry where, it is just give us blind trust. We want you to trust me, Sam. I want you to trust me, said client. But how? You've never actually built the bridge, for us to sort of come onto the land with you and enjoy the fruits, because we've never explained what it is clearly we do in terms that you understand. So, it could be, if you're a master in your universe, an architect, a teacher, you have your own language, you're a sports person, we need to be able to speak to people in their own language that they can understand. And I think we've been, broadly speaking, we've been poor at that. We speak in finance language, because we think that makes us look intelligent. We think that's what people want. I can tell you they definitely don't. People just wash over with that. They're not interested. What they want to know is, am I going to be okay? And actually, they want us to understand them. So, Sam, what makes you tick? What's important to you in life? You're talking to me earlier about your little one, Bella, 6 years old. The important things to you in life. And aspirations, going forward. So you were telling me your exciting story about the business and what you want to achieve with that. Those are the important things. So what is it that, really makes you tick? And it's all that personal side. And the finance stuff just sort of is the foundation that sits below that, and we can support with that. But first you've got to understand that personal side. So that's something we're massive on here at Spentwell, is being able to, educate, empower people. So we do lots of blogs, lots of short, punchy videos. And we're not perfect at it, but we try as hard as we can to remove the jargon and use sort of great storytelling. So, for instance, we talked about human protection, so protecting you in the event of death, or if you're off sick or ill. And we told the story of the three little pigs, who built the straw house, the brick house, and so on, and how that represented different tiers of protection you could have in place, really bringing it to life.
Yep.
Because we think of the masters of the universe, Disney. Everyone loves Disney.
Yeah. Because
they're amazing storytellers.
Yes.
And that's the kind of stuff we need to pull into our industry, because then you can hook people in. So then it becomes, we speak to people on their level, so they then start to understand why, the jargon stuff, why the pension's important, but in their language, understand why saving for your future is important.
Absolutely.
And so on and so forth. So that we do a lot of that here at Spentwell. So short, punchy videos, blogs, they're easy to understand. They can give people the tools to succeed. And that's stuff they can take away themselves. And some people will. And that's great. That's a win as far as I'm concerned. But equally, it's also just going to plant a seed in some people that are, time poor, busy professionals who just need a helping hand. And they'll then, come in and hook in with us. And that's great. So it's sort of serving those sort of different elements. And when it comes down to it, it's about doing the right thing. So whoever you are, doing right by you. That's the most important thing. And we believe we can do that by, demystifying, getting rid of all the noise, to be honest, that's in our industry, and just speaking to people in terms they understand.
I think for some, and that's brilliant, and I love that, and I'm all for that. And it's a big part of the future of financial planner life, is to be able to help and empower individual financial planners to tell their stories, but to do it in a way that isn't being done by others to stand out, and to simplify it for Joe Blogs. Because you're absolutely right, we don't want to sit there and understand the ins and outs about how a bond works or how the FTSE works, and we want to just understand, why should I save my money? What will it do to my well-being? How will it make me feel secure and match my security instinct by putting some money away, putting a financial plan in place that predicts and covers what might eventually happen within my life at different life points? And I think with anybody, a plan helps us feel comfortable. We can't predict the future, but we can certainly kind of have a guide and support along the way to help us with those areas that we don't fully understand. And I think money is a massive area that a lot of us don't understand. And also, we're under attack constantly from consumerism, marketing, things that we think we want because it's going to make us feel good. And we ignore what that then does to us on an emotional level, behavior level, when we then do the wrong things with our money. And we're under attack constantly, and I think people feel guilty and ashamed about that, whereas they shouldn't do, should they? They should kind of feel comfortable and confident about their finances. And it comes in so handy when it's people like you out there demystifying it, not making it complicated, and showing what it is you do outside of moving numbers around on a spreadsheet. You're actually the human side of what financial advice is. And that is the exciting part about it, because it makes people's lives better. It's a well-being proposition. If I ever opened up a financial advice company, it would always be about the people, and it would be with a huge well-being focus. I'd ensure that it was about how you are going to feel and how happy you're going to feel by understanding your behaviors and how that translates across into money.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that the behavioral side of it is absolutely fascinating. And there's some great guys that are doing some really good work in there. Brendan Fraser over in the US, Andy Hart here's his behavioral stuff, fascinating stuff. And it's actually quite exciting, because you start to then I've learned more about myself in this industry, with that sort of stuff, where you realize how important money is, and all these little biases you pick up along the way, subconscious biases, and how you deal with your own money, and how it relates to growing up. So it's said that our money habits and behaviors are ingrained in us from age 8. How fascinating is that?
Yeah.
And in the conversation you have with clients, when you ask them this, tell me about your childhood, and how it compares to your relationship with money, and they just see, oh, we're actually running on the same track as our parents, or we've gone completely against it because we were hacked off because our dad was really tight with money and that just really annoyed me, or my mother was really materialistic, and whatever it was. So it's fascinating. So then it hooks in, so then they start to understand themselves better.
Yes.
And then when they understand themselves, they then have that sort of grounding, right? All right, I now understand myself, my own behavior with money. Right, we've got a starting point. Right, now what is it going forward? Where do you want to get to?
I think anything that you do as a job where you educate somebody about self-improvement, i.e., let's put the mirror up to ourselves and let's look at the part that we play in how we live our life, our own happiness. We are the ones ultimately masters of our destiny. We are responsible for how we feel internally. I think any job where you learn about human behaviors and the things that we do to self-sabotage our lives, when you teach it to somebody else, you get a huge amount of reward, from helping somebody, but you are able to articulate it to somebody else in a way that then reinforces the message in your head. Therefore, that plasticity, that neuroplasticity, you're just deepening it and deepening it and deepening it in your belief system, and your view of it changes every time you teach somebody else. I know that. I learned it 3.5 years ago. I did a 12-step process because I was drinking too much. Yeah, my life was very down. I was depressed, and I've spoken about this before. But from doing a 12-step process and going through the 12 steps, one of the steps is that I have to help somebody else. And as I coached and developed and trained somebody else and helped them change, the internal understanding of why I was doing it was reinforced with me. So there's a power in giving back of what it does to you as well. And when you do that with an approach of kindness and love and gratitude, it's even better. And that's why I speak to advisors who love their job, is because they love that aspect of it, not because they're all about how much money I can make and look at the prestige and look at the fast car I'm driving. They do it because they believe they're genuinely making a difference, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. And I like to think that speaks for the majority of the industry, that we are here to do right by people. And by the way, that's really exciting. That I've got a client who literally 5 days ago has retired 5 years earlier than he thought he could.
Yeah.
He's absolutely buzzing.
Yeah.
And he's already planning trips to Iceland, to South Africa. He's going to take up golf. How bloody exciting is that? Just because we're able to sort of engage with him on his level, and get him to where he wants to be, and he can now go and enjoy his life. That's hugely rewarding.
Do you talk to them about their purpose in life as well? Do you kind of try to align, because a lot of the time somebody have this, I can imagine you sitting down with somebody, they've got this idea in their head of what retirement looks like. They've got this idea in their head of when it's going to happen. And some of those expectations might be steeped in fear. Some of them might be over exaggerated, like they're too confident and when you sit down and you look at it and you break down the financial side of it, it might be that actually you might need to work a little bit longer, or actually you could retire a bit earlier. But during that process, do you tend to demystify everything around them, and then deep down in the core of who they are, they have this drive of what they want to be? And it's often, do you ever help them bring that out? Like this chap who's saying, I'm going to go to Iceland and all of that. I mean, did he have this passion to want to go traveling? And, and you've helped him bring that further forward. Therefore, by connecting that idea of you can do it a lot sooner than you think, that he's then lifted his spirits.
Yeah, I think most of the people I speak with aren't quite sure what that vision is initially.
Yeah.
Like actually, I think it's that old adage that, the answer is ultimately 3 deep. So they'll give you the first answer. I want to retire at 65. All right. Why? Well, my scheme said it was 65, so I thought that'd be a good age. All right, but when do you want to retire? If you want to take a full stop, when would you do it?
Yeah.
All right. And then, well, okay, let's strip that away. What is important to you in life? Well, Keith, my family's important. Actually, my daughter's just had she's got a couple of kids. So I've got a couple of grandchildren now. Do you know what? I'd actually really like to spend more time with them. I'm working 5 days a week, so I don't really get the chance. All right, that's interesting. Would that be important to you? Oh, God, absolutely. I love them to bits. That would be amazing. Okay, right, that's interesting. What else? What else would you like to sort of achieve? If we're saying you're stopping completely, what would you do? What would you do with your life? All right. And then you start to go several layers deeper. And then, for that guy, as an example, eventually came out, well, do you know what? I'd really like to go a bit, more traveling. We haven't really done as much because we've always been, busy with the work or stuck here in Scotland, COVID and all that. I'd like to just hop off to, not sure where. I just want to go traveling to different places and experience different things. Well, great. What would it mean to you to be able to do that? I'd just be amazing. It would really just sort of give my life sort of, great sort of reason and purpose going forward. And we could take the family with us. And actually, if we've got enough money, we could maybe get a villa over in, South Africa and go off on all these exciting pursuits. Might not be that for some people. Some people just literally want to, enjoy their time, do some charitable work in the local community, whatever it is. But yeah, absolutely. It's about sort of really digging deep and asking questions that people have never been asked before, which is difficult for them. So that, I'll be silent, a lot of the time and they'll sort of look at me, is that not the answer you wanted? I don't know. You tell me, is that have you got more? And then, they keep going and you eventually get to the real reason what their driver is. And that's the fascinating part, because most people never go 3 layers deep, if not deeper. Most people are skimming the stone along the lake. They never actually dive below to the depths and really sort of see the treasures in their own mind, because no one's ever asked them, no one's cared, no one's ultimately listened. So that's, yeah, absolutely.
And I think as well, how can you be a good financial advisor? How could you be a good recruitment consultant? How could you be a good teacher, or whatever it might well be, where the idea is that you're looking to change people's lives? Also, as well, if you don't look at yourself, because you have to be able to know yourself internally to be able to help and understand others. And that's where I'm constantly seeing the good quality financial planners, right, are the ones who invest in themselves, that look at themselves and understand how the mind works, mind management, the things we go through, understand core beliefs, manifestation, all these wonderful things that are steeped in scientific backing. Once we know ourselves, only then can we really, with confidence, speak to somebody else and ask the questions that have been powerful in your life to make a change within you. And I think anybody listening here, and I'm speaking on behalf of, this is a general type thing, because anything I think where you are consulting people and changing their lives, it's important that you know yourself. Financial planners, right? Financial advisors, different. Here's a product, bang, off you go. Financial planners, different. It's about people. And that should be a priority number one for anybody, I think, considering this as a career. How am I with people? How am I with myself? Can I confidently sit down and have an open discussion where it helps somebody discover what perhaps some of their limiting beliefs are, or their fears are, and what they really want from their future? Am I good at that? Have I done it with myself? And that's the area that lacked for years within financial advice, because it was people just saying, oh, I'll sell you this, I'll sell you this, I'll sell you this, I'll sell you this, because they're chasing the commission. It was a money focused type thing.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. A reward should come from the work you do, right? It should do. A byproduct of good work, right? If you are looking for the financials in your life and that's a motivator for you, should be also about the money, but it's also about the journey, isn't it? And it's also about how does it make you feel after you've done your job. And I think that's important, because a byproduct of doing a good job is you feel good, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Can I now take, I love that little piece then. Brilliant. I love talking about that, because that's the part that I see as financial planning truly. And I think as people listen to this, it's like that, do that, be that person. The numbers, the research changes all the time. That's why we've got power planners. It's why we've got administrators. It's why we've got compliance people in place. Is because it allows you to focus on the people.
Yeah. I think, that's why, I think, unfortunately, this is where we're guided by the textbook.
Yeah.
The textbook gives us this, and that relates to your part about we then went and sold. We're all salesmen, actually, ultimately, when you think about it. If you go through any career, we're all selling in some way, shape, or form. And we shouldn't be ashamed of that. That's perfectly fine. But it was done in the wrong way in financial services back in the day. We're much better at that now. But we're given this in the textbook. In tying what you said, we actually need all this over here, which is the human element, the behavior element over here, understanding humans, how they work, how they tick. And that's where the real value add is. This broadly stays the same. All right, bar some rule changes, government changes, and so on. But this element is quite fascinating because that's more personal. And that's where you can really start to make a massive difference.
Based on your experience then, how did you educate yourself around that? What things did you do, or what did you listen to, or what did you read, or what courses did you take to really improve that side of you as a person? Were you born with that? Were you a natural, or did you learn it?
Yeah, that's something I've continually learning, and I still am. And I think that's something I enjoy about our industry, in that you will never have all the answers, and you should actively, seek out different opinions, different approaches across different industries as well. So, and that's something I always try to do. So I'm a keen reader, be that on Audible or physical books. So I'll go and read, interesting books by, the behavioral psychologist guys, people like Carol Dweck, is it? I can never pronounce her name. Brendan Fraser, listen to podcasts like Andy Hart, like Pete Matthews, guys like that. Yeah. So listen to guys within our sphere of influence, as well as being open to, opinions of people in different, industries as well, where you can start to see different ideas and how that might, you might be able to pull that in. And that comes interestingly from the clients we speak to. So from the interesting mix, where you get inspired yourself on things you could do, your friends and associates and so on, as well as the usual sort of, seminars and webinars. So Next Gen's been fantastic for that, and getting in some, good alternative thinkers. Humans Under Management's another one, which is quite fascinating. But I guess always sort of looking beyond. Stephen Bartlett, as an example, he's an interesting entrepreneur. What can we learn from, and ultimately, I'm running a business. I'm a financial planner. Am I a well-versed business owner, entrepreneur? Not really. What can I learn from guys like you, Sam, who are doing that? what can I learn from other entrepreneurs who are ultimately running businesses and take their best ideas and plug them into financial planning. So absolutely, I'm always sort of exploring that stuff, and that's across, be that video, books, podcasts, seminars, and so on. Unfortunately, I don't have an endless amount of time, but it's having a young daughter means I can pop in my AirPods when I'm out in the pram with her and listen to an interesting book or podcast.
I agree with you. I love the audio. Audio is a great way to sort of divulge, to get information to sink in. Podcasts, whether it be Audible. I'm listening to Manifestation at the moment. It's a fantastic book about manifestation. And I love things like neuroplasticity and knowing that if you think a certain way, raise your vibration with certain language, internal voices, how you project something internally as it being happy, how you manifest it, that actually it does work, it does change. And it was brilliant reading that book, because as I went through it, Roxy Gavolsi, I can't remember her surname, Roxy somebody. But anyway, as I was reading through it, I realized I was doing a lot of it. And because it's like a step process within it, I love that, because it allows me then to kind of work through it as a workbook. And as I was, sometimes we do these things, but we don't have the confidence that we're doing it. And when you read it in a way that's backs it with science, it's like, oh man, I'm doing this. So you believe it. So therefore you have faith. And when you have faith, you then are 100% all in. And when you're 100% all in, that's when it changes. And some of the change I've had anyway over the last 6 months in my thinking has just been out of this world. So if anybody's listening to this and wants to reach out to me and ask me any questions about anything when it comes to like changing a mindset from a depression, anxiety, even addiction mindset to being happy, grateful and content and also positive, it come and speak to me, because I'll happily share my journey.
Brilliant.
Maybe a podcast for another time, I think. We all take risks in our careers, right? You spent 6 years nearly in those administrative paraplanning roles, hybrid role. You managed to land yourself a great job with Brewing Dolphin, right? Brewing Dolphin are a fantastic company. We work with them. What an amazing company, right? But you decided to take a risk, I think, in your career. Tell us a little bit about Hong Kong. What happened there?
Yeah, so stepped away from Brewing. Quite a tough decision, because I had a great boss who was hugely supportive, really understanding and sort of supported my development a lot. So it was really tough to leave that role. My partner was offered a role in Hong Kong. She's a consultant. And we thought, do you know what? We've always wanted to go away and get some life experience. She'd done a bit of traveling, I hadn't. And also, work abroad. It'd be quite interesting to see how are they doing it over in Hong Kong. That'd be quite fascinating. So we decided to sort of take the plunge and move across. And what a fascinating experience it was, living in essentially a shoebox. So my wife was over there first, and she could sit in her bed, she could reach over, cook here, and then literally just a couple of steps over there would be the toilet and shower, all combined within one room, which was interesting. Thankfully, when I came across, we upgraded that to a bit more room, but still fairly modest. So because Hong Kong Island is, limited space, creates tall skyscrapers, means you have small flats. Unless you're, a millionaire, you can go live up on the mountain and a nice villa there. But so it means all your life is essentially outside. So the cost between eating in and eating out was neither here nor there. Expensive place, but you tend to eat out most nights, which then means you'd be quite social, most nights. So there's no distinction between the working week and the weekend. It's all very much blended as one. So quite sort of full on in that respect in Hong Kong. But, equally, it's full of like-minded expats. So you make, some great friends quickly. One of my best friends I met in a lift, just by chance. And he's from New Zealand, and he ended up being my best mate there, and we still keep in touch. But that's the mindset over in Hong Kong, that everyone's very sort of open. It's something that I brought back here, actually, and that be more open to just speaking to different people from different walks of life. You never know where it can take you. So, so the personal side, brilliant. Did traveling around Asia and so on as well, every month or so, as well as working. So I worked with St. James's Place in Hong Kong, who, my opinion, compared to other firms in Hong Kong, were a shining light, because they're bringing more UK standard across. Hong Kong, in terms of financial advice, could be considered to be the sort of 1980s or 70s of the UK. Can be a bit Wild West at times. In various stories I came across with people passing over, $500,000, US dollars, and that's gone in the space of 3 months or 4 months, and the advisor's nowhere to be seen.
Right.
So lots of unpredictable, sort of unscrupulous characters. But that sort of experience really sort of firmed up on who am I? Who do I want to be an advisor? I'm not, we're given some sales training, and I realized quite quickly, I don't want to be that hard sales guy. And actually, I don't think people want to be hard sold to. So in Hong Kong, I created my own blog called Financial Musings of a Scotsman.
Okay, yeah.
Where essentially it was about breaking down barriers, so sharing good financial information that people can carry themselves. And that in itself would build up trust, which was a massive, and it still is a challenge for all of us, but particularly in sort of Hong Kong at the time, break down that barrier, build trust by showing them, actually, I do know what I'm talking about. Here's some stuff you can carry. And then that sort of drew in sort of clients sort of through that approach by just sort of displaying that, no, I am here to do right and do good by you. So, it was a fascinating experience in Hong Kong, and really sort of made me sort of firm up in who I am and what I want, as a career. It was always going to be about doing right by people.
So looking back on it, no regret going off to Hong Kong and having a go in the expat advice market. It wasn't a regret to you. You see it as being something that kind of opened you up to knowing really what it was that you wanted to be. A lot of people get that from traveling, don't they? I certainly did it as a younger age when I traveled around Asia and for a year or so in Australia. It did open me up to the idea of who I am and what I really want from life. So combining the two is fantastic. So you obviously took that risk. You learned a lot when you were out there. You also discovered the type of advisor that you wanted to be didn't fit the model of what perhaps Hong Kong and the expat community and what St. James's Place wanted from you as a financial advisor. Therefore, you decided then to eventually come back and let's push forward now to where you currently are at the moment, because throughout your career, you've worked within financial planning, but you've decided to run and set up your own business. So did going to Hong Kong and that really kind of create that entrepreneurial spark in you also, that you could be that person that could take, again, another risk? Because it is a risk running your own business, isn't it? Especially directly authorized. Did that spark that change in you and drive you to then create Spentwell?
Yeah, absolutely. There was always in my time in Hong Kong, there was always that push to be, how are you bringing in sort of clients? So ultimately it was, how are you, be more entrepreneurial, think differently. And that was hard because that wasn't something I'd been particularly pushed into sort of prior to them. So, that you do sort of go on that bit of a roller coaster ride, and you do have to be patient and have, bloody thick skin, to be honest, because, it doesn't happen instantly. And that was an experience I had in Hong Kong where it was, for instance, that knowledge sharing approach. I was very aware that was going to be a slow burn approach. And I needed to be patient and have faith in that, and be honest, that wavered at times because it's not happening instantly, and you're good at what you do, and you're better than some of the other guys out there. But how do I sort of get over that hurdle? So that gave me a really sort of great grounding. So when I came back, I recognized that when I started Spentwell, this is how I want to do it. It's about doing right by people. I know it's going to take time. And I'd said to myself, it's probably going to take at least 2, if not 3 years to see this very relaxed knowledge sharing approach, education first approach, to really land with people and start seeing that coming back to me. But I was also comforted in the knowledge that, regardless, I'm still going to be having an impact with people. And I know that's then going to come back to me at some point, because people will remember me because I did right by them, even though I didn't necessarily, profit from it at the time, and it wasn't about that at the time. So I've carried that with me, into Spentwell, and that very much sort of forms our number one approach is, get out there, share knowledge, break down those barriers, do it in a jargon-free way, bring people on the journey with us, and get people engaged in their money.
Yeah. One of the questions I'm going to ask you then around, because being marketing led through blogs, some videos, some content, that kind of thing, it's not the typical thing that financial planning firms have been doing. They're starting to do it more now. Did you feel restricted in what you could be as an advisor by being employed? Was that, again, a driver where you're thinking, look, I've got this idea, this philosophy of how I want to run this slower burn, when there's external pressures from somebody who employs you, well, why haven't you brought business in on that? And you're like, well, look, I am building something here as well, which is going to have value, this intrinsic value. It's going to amalgamate, it's going to compound over time and create the brand that I want to be and bring people in. Did you feel under pressure that you couldn't do things like that when you were employed, but being your own boss has allowed and freed you up to try the things that you truly think you want to do and that add value?
Yeah, and I think this is where employers need to just sort of take a step back to a degree and be more. All the firms I work with are brilliant, right?
Yeah, of
all
course.
great people in their own different, on different approaches. But I think there was that understandable, almost that shareholder need, if you like, for instant return on investment. We almost need to take a step back and say, well, actually, if we want to do this in the right way, we need to be prepared to have, a year, 18 months of Keith building up who he is, his brand, his approach, and it'll happen. But we almost have to be prepared to say, we need to support him for a few years for that to really come to fruition. And what you find in the bigger firms is that there are those sort of pressure points, realities of sort of being a commercial business and that demand for instant results. So when it came to sort of doing things slightly differently, for example, I won't name the firm, but changing a dull, boring suitability report and putting some visuals in, nah. We don't do that, Keith. Compliance says no. No, but we can explain this one meaty page of text with 2 really great visuals and talk about it with a client. Nah, we're not doing that. And I found that slightly frustrating because I knew it would be a better outcome for a client. Not that everyone's visually orientated, but many of us are. But I knew it'd be a better outcome because clients don't read 40 pages above.
No.
But they can engage with visual and engage with stories.
Yes.
So I found that, within that, we're sort of stuck within those 2 tracks, which, ultimately sort of led me to wanting to step out beyond that and do it in the way that I, think it should be delivered. Is it perfect? No, it's not. And for some, it's not the right way. And that's okay. Because everyone will, receive their messages in different ways. But, I do know it, and it is having a positive impact with people because it's, being delivered in a way that resonates with them. And that's, running my own business has given me that flexibility to do that and move beyond the constraints of perhaps the bigger beasts who are stuck in these traditional ways that, to be fair to them, is very difficult to change because it's ingrained. And some of them are trying to change, but that takes time. Whereas I've got the flexibility to say, we're going to change, we're going to turn the boat and do it this way without too much baggage.
Yeah, I love that. I think and I've said it before, as a commentator, if you like, on the profession and an observer. I am an observer. I don't do your job. I'm an observer and a commentator. What I'm definitely seeing, and I predict also, is a rise in newer firms opening up, right? Run by younger people who have a more entrepreneurial mindset and more confidence in running their own businesses, because that's pretty much how they've been marketed to on Instagram and since they were born. And I believe that with the support and the technology that is out there, that it's never been more achievable for somebody to run a business in financial planning the way they want to do it, with the umbrella and the support of good compliance, right? You don't have to be your own directly authorized form. You guys have gone down that way, but you don't have to be, right? So I believe we're going to be seeing more of that. And then, and I suppose it's having the confidence, if you're sat in a role right now and you're looking at your current firm and they're not matching your expectations of what you believe good financial advice is or how you want to market yourself. So you being your true person, if you've got a couple of guys running a business and they've never engaged on social media before, they start thinking you're absolutely wacky. Why are you saying this? Why are you saying that? Whereas if you deep down know that, well, actually, I'm seeing these guys doing it and it's actually working. So that is definitely on the rise, and we're in what I would consider to be, and it's good choice of words, it's a startup. We're in a startup phase currently. It's an exciting time for financial planning. You've got an aging population of advisors and a huge amount of clients that are going to need advice. You've got a great transition of wealth that is happening. There's no shortage of money out there. There's a huge need for financial advice because there's not very good financial advice out there, which is what the coaching side of things coming in and starting to fill that gap and talking to people about the types of things that can build good habits early on in your life, like savings accounts, managing your money correctly, not wasting your money on certain things. That's really, really good, the early behavioral side. But good financial planning is in a startup phase. Good advisors like you that are passionate about it, that can educate and articulate it in a way that people understand, there's a need, and it's never been easier to do it. So the confidence that people have to have sitting there right now thinking I can do this better, it's like you probably can.
Yeah.
But empathize, don't think arrogantly and be driven by your ego that just because the guys that you're in business with aren't doing it doesn't mean they haven't tried things throughout their career. They've had failures. They've gotten to a point where it's working for them and their goals are different from yours. Therefore, don't be resentful at them. Take what you can and understand, but follow your confidence within you and your purpose of where you want to take it. Because being a business owner, and you'll understand this, right? When you're sitting there as an employee, it's like, well, do that, do this, do this, do that. Why aren't you doing that? But actually, when it comes down to you running your own business and you're like, oh, hang on a second, I'm wearing 12 different hats here. No wonder they were a bit cautious about doing things, because they're trying to do the job and they're trying to run a business. And we know that now. You know that. You're probably stepping into that being a business owner. So my question to you now would be, lots of people thinking about becoming an advisor, lots of people thinking about setting up their own firms, rightfully so, right? Lots of people thinking about, I want to do what you're doing around blogging, videos, content on social media. How the hell do you stay organized? How do you stay organized? How do you, spin multiple plates? Because there's a skill to that. And that's a big fear. If people put all their energy in, all their focus in trying to do marketing, they're worried they're going to drop the plate in client development or something like that. So how do you stay organized, and when's the right time to do this sort of thing?
Yeah, it's it's an interesting challenge as a business owner. So my background is myself, and I've got a fellow director, Diane, who supports me in behind the scenes. So she supports, finance, sort of fee reconciliations. And I started taking the view, liking it to, I think it was Alex Ferguson that said it, that, if you're not an expert in something, be confident enough and be comfortable enough to go and get someone that's better than you in that space. Yep. So, I've got consultancy support, I've got investment support as well externally. Compliance support externally, to sort of free up my space to allow me to do what I'm good at, which is financial planning, as well as sort of the marketing side of it as well. I may get to a point where I may outsource some of that, but so that helps with the organization because I've got experts around me, and also helps stress test my own ideas. So Diane, my fellow director, I stress test things off her, as well as fellow professionals in the industry. So I'm in a group of planners. There's about 7 of us who all run our own businesses. So we'll bounce ideas off each other, which is great. It's invaluable. But yeah, in terms of that business structure, so there's something I'm quite sort of big on, because you could easily lose yourself with 12 different hats or whatever it is across different guises. And ultimately, we need to be sitting in front of clients. That's the most important thing. So Monday's an admin day for me. Friday's an admin day. I won't tend to take meetings on those days. So those are catch-up days for me. Allow me to do the behind-the-scenes stuff. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday will be blocked out, and available for meetings. And I'll be flexible. If it needs to be later at night or early in the morning, we'll do that. So that gives a bit of structure. And actually, I hooked in fact, I've got it here, Michael Hyatt's book, which is Full Focus Planner, which, take quite an interest in sort of goal setting, habits and behaviors, and how we can do that. So this is where I've learned stuff that I then impart on clients, is how you can be more organized, achieve your goals. So I've actually found this has been invaluable, where I'll set on a Sunday or night or Monday morning, I'll set out targets and goals for the week, and sort of my top 3 targets for each day. So it gives me a structure, because it's quite easy for us in our world, particularly multiple hats, to rush over here, rush over there, and so on, and get to the end of the day and don't feel like you've achieved anything. So having that sort of daily structure in place is really important. And within that, I then expand that to monthly and quarterly and yearly targets. So we'll do an August State of the Nation review. What have we done? What have we achieved for the year? Right, what's our goals for the next year? So sort of breaking it down into those different elements, saying when it comes to Keith on day one, I know what's happening. So that's how I just sort of try to sort of keep organized in that respect.
So keep a structured plan. You book out certain days that are non-negotiables when it comes to like things like administration.
Yeah.
A lot of key, you love sport. A lot of sports stars and people that are very experienced and successful in what they do when it comes to sport. Kobe Bryant and stuff. Is it Kobe Bryant? I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, I think so.
These guys have non-negotiables, don't they? Things that they always do, and it's a non-negotiable. I mean, there was one guy, I was listening to the performance podcast, and he never left the basketball court until he'd hit 5 3-pointers with a swoosh, as opposed to hitting anything. And that was a non-negotiable for him. So, Jordan was non-negotiable. He was always going to be 2.5 hours turning up before a session even starts of training. Some people's non-negotiables are all about time. Some are about having a non-negotiable is I won't finish work until I've booked in 5 meetings or whatever. Have you got any non-negotiables that you live by?
Yeah, nothing too big, but a couple of my sort of important ones is dress for your day.
Okay.
So, I home based, do have an office in town, but tend to sort of work from home. So basically, from the moment I get up, creating the right mindset for work, which is dressing for your day. And I'm open collar, fairly relaxed in that space. But, that sort of puts me in the right work mindset. Secondly is being there for my family. So that means finishing it, broadly speaking, 5 o'clock or 5:30. So I'm there for bedtime. I can go pick up Sky from nursery. Because what's the point in running your business if you just end up working 24/7? I may as well just go get a 9-to-5 job and probably be more happy. So having that sort of structure and, boundaries between personal life and working life is hugely important to me, to allow me to go and, spend time with my wife and spend time with Sky. That's, because why not? We should be able to do that. What are my other ones? So dress for your day. Structure and sort of working hours, not extending beyond them. I'm not perfect in that. It can happen. That's sort of the realities of it. But and always, sounds silly cheesy, but it's something that I find hugely important is always thinking of the client first. So, I get a lot of approaches from people who need support. And the harsh realities of the business is that sometimes it's just not economically viable. But I don't believe it's right just to say no to them and they walk away. I still feel compelled to do something for them. So I'll do a guidance call with them and I'll send them some webinars I've done and still answer some of their questions. So even if it's not profitable for me, I still want to do right by people, regardless of where they are on the spectrum.
Yep.
That's one of my things that I'm hugely important. It's hugely important to me that forms sort of a key part of our approach. And beyond that, I don't know. I don't think too deeply about this, I guess. Those are a couple of my key ones.
That's cool.
I suppose the other thing is actually in terms of clients, no people I don't like would be the polite way to say it. So only take on people that actually I want to work with.
Yes.
I'm not, even if they had £10 million, whatever it is. If it's someone I don't abide by or they don't meet my values, I'm not going to work with them because I need to be able to relate to those people. I need to be able to work with people I want to make a difference with. And I know there's enough people out there that we can do that. So I'll say no to people that doesn't quite fit. And importantly, it might not fit for them either. And that's doing right by them. So that's also a hugely important one.
I like that. I like that a lot, actually. I abide by that. And I always know, so you can always feel when somebody's not quite right. And you can always feel, but the problem is it lingers. So it lingers. You go home, put your head on the pillow, and you're like, "Oh, I really didn't like that. I didn't like," and it lingers, and it lingers to. Why are you going to have something? It's like what you put out there, you attract, right? Simple as that. So if you're surrounding yourself with people you don't want to work with, you're going to feel like shit. Simple as that. So I absolutely agree. And I think in the early stages of someone's career, you want to just kiss a load of frogs and just any bit of business and you people please the hell out of it, but you're not living to your true values. And I like that, and running your own business, you've got to be living to your values. That's the whole point. One of the things you picked up there on a non-negotiable, I think is hugely, hugely important. And I absolutely live it, is that picking your daughter up from school, taking your daughter to school, being there for your family is highly important if you're running your own business. As you say, what is the point? My other non-negotiable, if I shared mine right now, is that I have a non-negotiable that I'm an hour and a half in the gym every day.
Nice.
So hour and a half in the gym every day. looking after my body, but I also have a non-negotiable around 2 hours of mental health as well. So I ensure that for 2 hours a week, I am taking some time out to reflect, to write, to meditate, and to ensure, just to check in with myself, to inventory how I'm feeling, to make sure that I'm on the right path. I'm not hiding or minimizing anything. I'm not worried or scared about anything. I haven't got any resentments or anything like that that could be affecting who I am as a person, and therefore affecting who, the people, the culture within my business, my family, etc. So I think sometimes with non-negotiables is that we have it within work, but if we don't look at our non-negotiables with ourselves first, it's going to influence our work in a negative way, which can spill out to spending, not going to bed till 11 o'clock and waking up at 6 o'clock and working on weekends and things like that. Because as Paul Bradley said to me on the podcast recently, time is our most valuable asset. Time is our most valuable asset. And this within financial planning, is that you're basically giving people time back by planning their future, right? And time, you can't get more time. It's more valuable than money. And I think when we use our time wisely, we have a more happy and healthier life, but we're more happy and healthier work balance. Employers, i.e. me, got 20 odd people in there. I ensure that my business has thought about them as individuals to look after their well-being, their flexibility, the things that will be going through their head, not just what I think they should be doing. And it's created a far greater culture of trust and happier, content people within my business. Some will not fit that environment because they can't handle the freedom, and that's fine, and they don't belong in this type of environment. But we must live our values. We must share that with others. If I'm doing it, they get the chance to do it as well. And I find that looking after yourself as well as your non-negotiables on how you work with clients and your business will only improve your business.
Yeah, I agree. And just to sort of tie into that, Sam, it's a bit of a question for you, actually. So I do that personal reflection sort of stuff that you mentioned there sort of once a week.
Yeah.
I'll look back on the week that's gone by and think about things, work and personal stuff, and reflect on it and write down sort of thoughts and things. And it's something, I'd be interested in your thoughts, something I found really interesting, because when you sit down and do that and look back, then you think things that you maybe worried about or felt you didn't go well or whatever it was, when you reflect on it, you then realize, well, actually, that wasn't that bad. Or actually, this is quite valuable because I've learned I should just do this time around. It was good that I failed in that. I don't know how is that?
It's exactly what I do. Yeah. So the way I look at things is I'll look at something like, how do I feel within myself? Am I annoyed with anybody? Do I have a resentment against anybody at all? Is anything eating away at me based on their behaviors or something? Am I holding something? Am I minimizing something that's annoying me? I look at the things of, am I scared of anything? Am I worried about anything? Because fear is obviously the future. Resentment is usually in the past, right? Something's happened in the past. Fear is something in the future. So am I worried about money? Am I worried about next month's billings? Am I worried about what someone thinks of me because I'm picking my kids up every day at 4 o'clock? I'll go through some of those things. I'll look at, okay, well, how is my spirit right now? I'll look at that, write all that down. And I'll look at things like, if there's a fear, then I'll break that down and think, well, where is that fear coming from? What part of me is it affecting? Is it affecting my security instincts? Is it affecting my social instincts? So I start to look at those parts and start to think about the I and me and what part of me is being affected. What part of my ego is being affected. When I can do that, it usually then brings to light the thing that's the problem. Now, it might be that I might have to have a conversation with somebody that's uncomfortable. Therefore, I need to do that. I need to have a conversation with it. It might be that I owe an apology to somebody because, it doesn't sit right with me that perhaps I've done the wrong thing. Yeah. Or I've thought the wrong way. So it helps me put a picture, a mirror up to myself, just to see what areas am I responsible for the way that I feel. But whilst I'll do that as well, I'll also review the things that I've done in work. And I'll pat myself on the back. What I try to do every Friday now is sit down because I'm responsible for marketing and I've got a marketing manager within my business. We sit down on a Friday, we build a list, we inventory what we've done and what we want to do. And we build that list and we spend a couple of hours doing that for the sole purpose that when I hit Monday morning, we sit down again. Yeah. And we have a clear, right. Remember Friday? This is what we're doing this week. We fire into it really, really quickly. We find that list again within half an hour. We fire into it and we have a fantastic week. So part of it for me is about reflecting on how I feel And am I responsible for how I feel? What can I do to change that? Am I holding on to something? Do I need to let something go? Have I got a resentment? Am I scared of something? And I make those changes and I bring it into the light. Now, if I can't deal with that myself personally, I've got a business partner. A big fear of mine was always sharing my worries to my business partner. But what I've learned through sharing something that I've looked at first and seen my part in it, right, is that if I go to him and talk to him, it's bringing it into the light, and a different perspective is then shared, and it allows me then to look at things from a different perspective, a bit like you with your group with the guys, right?
Yeah.
And perspective is what it's all about, because we can live in our heads and we can have this idea of the world as a doom and gloom place, but someone says something, one thing, and it changes your perspective. And you go, I didn't think about it that way.
Yeah.
Having that confidence and that team around you, and we've built and I've instilled that process now into our business, so we have that internally, so we're able to do that internally. We all kind of do it. So that's how I do it, and that's how I spend my time. If I don't do that, guess what, Keith? I start to get a bit wobbly. I start, the week afterwards, I might not do it. And then the week afterwards, I might not do it. And lo and behold, what happens? I build up and I build up and I build up and I build up. And that's when it's dangerous for me, because then I'll start making rash decisions or thoughts about things or people, places, things that are untrue, purely based on my interpretation in my head of the chimp going mental, saying, yeah, fucked, life's crap, and I'm like, ooh. And that's when I start to lose my sense of calm and contentment and balance. That's what I do.
Brilliant, Sam. Do you know what I think? Based on my own experience, I think that is perhaps one of the most important things of being a business owner, is exactly what you said, sort of being able to sort of go through that process, because it'd be quite easy within our own sort of sphere, our own little bubble, to get lost, within our own world, stress about things you don't need to stress about, perhaps go down avenues you shouldn't be going down.
Yep.
And just having that personal time to sort of personally reflect, work and personal life, just sort of brings that balance back in. I think it's hugely important. That's something I've sort of, I suppose, battled with over the last 3 years, finding that. Yes. And I found that process just invaluable. And that's something I think I would say for any aspiring business owner. It doesn't even need to be in our industry. Being able to do that, actually being disciplined in doing that,
yes,
will have a massive difference on your personal life and in the business. Because at the end of the day, if you're happy, it's more likely that your family will be happy and your business will be a happy, successful business.
In the beginning, like any habit, right? I swear by James Clear, Atomic Habits. What a fantastic book that is. Taught me so much, right? Just take 5 minutes a day for yourself to inventory your thoughts and to look at them, right? That 5 minutes a day builds up because you start to see the value in it. Make it really, really easy to do it. What I do now, right, it's almost automatic. I turn to it within my head, this inventory list, and I look at the parts that I play in it. Do I owe it? What's the outcome to it? It's happening all the time for me on autopilot. So in the beginning, like going to the gym, you have to spend an hour. You might have to get a personal trainer to give you some discipline, some accountability, to give you and to teach you why and how to do things without damaging yourself. Because like looking after your body, you can get lost in a world of online help, right? Where everything is pretty much saying the same thing, but doing it from a different perspective. And then you get so confused that you give up, right? It's the same with the fitness industry. You can follow all these people online. Look, the fundamental basics of like losing weight is like calorie deficit, isn't it? Calorie deficit, if you want a good body, calorie deficit and lift weights. If you want to build muscle, eat more and lift weights, right? It's very similar to the way the mind works. I'm not sort of saying that, I'm going to categorize every bit of mental health problems into one box. I'm talking about mental fitness. I'm talking about improving your mental health when it comes to you as an individual and you as a business owner. And there are simple things that you can do. One is take the thought out of your head, put it onto paper, materialize it, look at it objectively, and take a look at what part you played in it. Can you do things differently? Oh, lo and behold, I can. Have I done something wrong? Own up to it and accept it. Don't be ashamed or guilty for it. Don't hold on to things that you think are, wrong. Don't have a high expectation of yourself. Don't have, hold yourself to such a high expectation that you're never going to actually achieve what it is you're going to do. Because guess what? That internal voice that you've got going on in your head day in, day out is going to be a right little taskmaster. It's going to be horrible. One of the biggest, best things I ever learned, and I said it to a girl this morning in the office, is that you have a relationship internally, right? There's a voice inside your head. Stop, listen. How does that voice talk to you? What language does that voice use? Is it kind? Is it loving? Is it supporting you in your journey to be the best recruitment consultant that you could be? Is it beating you up constantly? Is it putting you down constantly? Change the internal voice, change the picture of who that internal voice is. Mine used to be this Gollum-esque, horrible thing. Now it's this beautiful, kind, fit, healthy spirit like within me that's I just turn to, and I have this wonderful internal conversation, and it feeds me with the things that I want to hear, not the things that I don't want to hear. And that's one of the most powerful things you can do is do that day in, day out. It seems really silly in the beginning, but once you do it, your brain will change, and it will affect you massively with your work, because you give yourself a bloody break. You're allowed to make mistakes as a business owner, and you will make mistakes in your careers. And I've made a mistake. Yeah, I've made a mistake. Brilliant. What have I learned?
Yeah.
And I love that. And that's one of the things that my piece of advice, I think you echo that. You're on that page, and that's what it's about to being a business owner. It's just giving yourself a bloody break, because if you're doing it to yourself, right? Let's say you get to the stage where you start employing people. What are you going to do? You're going to project that onto others. I did that for so long. I projected my shit onto others. And I look back on it and think man, that was your fault. And I'm glad I don't do that anymore, because and guess what? Fantastic business out there.
Yeah, but you learn from it, don't you? And I guess it's why you have to fail. It's hard at the time, but in hindsight, you look back and think, oh yeah, that was actually quite a good fail. I'm glad I did. Otherwise, I wouldn't be where I am today, which I think is also a hard part of, running a business, is the moments of failure, and you beat yourself up, as you rightly say, but you bringing it back to, sort of having that conversation and just, moving forward, keep moving forward. It's
Absolutely
really important.
A couple of things I really liked about what you talked about by having your business is that you have started your own directly authorized firm, but you've partnered with somebody. So you found that significant other that adds the part to that business that you haven't got, perhaps. Yeah. So you found that, yin to your yang. Yeah. And I think that's really important, because some of the most successful people that are setting up their businesses for like work-life balance have that relationship. They have that relationship. So someone might be a really client-facing financial advisor, but they join forces with a paraplanner, and then they set their business up. One of the roles that I see more as well is somebody who's like more operational based. So a financial advisor partnering with an operational focus type individual who thinks about structure, who thinks about how the processes are for the business, and perhaps does a bit of compliance, but maybe manages the compliance, manages the power planner on an outsourced basis, but is the operational person, making sure everything's ticking over. So in the back of your mind, you're not worried, and you're off doing all your things that you need to do, which is see financial planners and work on the content that you want to create. It frees up that energy, that part of your brain which is constantly thinking, what if should I? It takes away that. So I don't know how you think about that, but that's my experience of talking to advisors. Perhaps if you go it alone, right, like I'm going to do my own business and it's just going to be me, I personally think that's a risky game. Find somebody who is yin to your yang, and they're out there. And you know what? I don't know if you notice this as well, but the role of like a power planner or operations manager, it's always been kind of one that's steeped in employment. Like, oh, you kind of do what you do, a bit mushroom, feeding shit and keep them in the dark, just do your job and get on with it, Now, what I'm seeing now is far more entrepreneurial administrators, far more entrepreneurial operation managers, far more power planners. I've seen 2 compliance guys set up their own financial advice firm and then employ financial advisors. So we're seeing this more and more. So connecting with the likes of the Power Planner Powwow, the Power Planner clubs, there's lots of them out there now, isn't there? That if you are thinking about starting your own business, find an entrepreneurial power planner, they're out there and they want to join forces. Don't do it alone.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think there's a confidence aspect to that as well, to be prepared to take on people that are better than you.
Yeah,
that displays a lot of confidence to be able to say, actually, I'm not an expert in this. I could do it, but I'll be a 5 out of 10.
Yeah,
Sam's a 9 out of 10. Let's go and get him, and he'll be better than me at it, and it can allow me to focus on something else. I think that's a huge strength to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it's only going to make your business better. So I agree, and having that sort of different perspective as well. So that's what Diane gives me. She's supported other young sort of entrepreneurs, so she's got experience in this journey, and I was very aware of that. So that's really valuable to me. So she then sits down with me and says, "All right, this is your idea, Keith. Have you thought about X, Y, and Z?" All right, no. Okay, right. Good point. I'll think about that. So it's just invaluable, because it's quite easy just to sort of go down the rabbit hole. Otherwise, if you don't seek counsel out west. So when I started the business, I spoke to, I don't know, 10, 12 different planners who ran their own businesses down south and up here in Scotland, and I got their perspectives on it. If you don't know what you don't know. So go and speak to guys that are good at it, and you can learn from them. Which has been invaluable.
Keith, if somebody, and again, this is a fear that people have, right? If somebody knocked on your door, phoned you up, sent you a message in the digital age, knocked on your door, no one does that anymore. Someone drops in your inbox, and says, "Keith, I want to start my own business. I've listened to you on the Financial Planner Life podcast, and I am thinking about starting my own business, but I'll be honest, I don't know where to start." As a person who runs a business and someone reaches out to you and asks for your help, how often does that happen? Probably not that often.
I've actually spoken to 3 people this year thus far, 3-4 people who've asked me that question. So I actually get asked that more often than I expected.
And how do you feel when somebody asks you that question? Do you think, "Oh, for God's sake," or do you think, "Oh, I help this person"?
Oh, honored, absolutely honored. I love it, because they're someone that's passionate and wants to go and make a difference. And when they do it in the right way, and they tend to do it in the right way, they'll approach it in the right way. Yeah, I'll give them an hour or 2 of my time or whatever. That's just great, because it's just, we should be able to all work in the industry together and boost each other up.
Yeah.
There are far too many clients out there for us all. Why can't we all work together and support each other? Because if we support each other, it just brings the whole industry up. So the standard goes from here to there, because we've just been willing to open the door to people and share best practice. And I don't think we should be scared about doing that. Some of us can be, and this is my piece of the pie, I'm holding on to this, I'm not sharing my secrets. Okay, I get it, there's intellectual property and all of that. We don't want to maybe give away all of our secrets, but that doesn't mean we can't still, lift the industry up by, supporting, these guys that want to start their own business, or maybe just think differently in their own business, be an entrepreneur, as I think it was Ryan May that did a talk about that in Next Gen, which is really interesting. Love it. So absolutely, open door.
Fantastic. I always like to finish on, we had a great conversation today. You've shared so much, and it's been a really lovely conversation talking to you. I've really benefited from talking to you.
Yeah, thank you. Likewise.
Lovely flow of conversation. How about we end on, someone is thinking about, what advice would you give to somebody right now who is thinking about becoming a financial advisor, right? Or working within the financial advice profession? They're in a different profession, let's say, perhaps they're a graduate even. What's your sales pitch to why someone should become a financial planner or work in the profession?
Oh, my sales pitch to them. Well, I think first off, whoever it is, they need to just sort of, take a step back and relax. Don't stress about it too much. Be open to maybe trying different roles in the industry. If you might want to be a planner, that may be your ultimate goal, but be okay with experimenting in the industry, because you might be surprised with what you sort of come across. But a pitch to the industry is, don't listen to the mainstream industry jargon which says, we do finance, we do money, this is the textbook, go and read it and then you can do your thing. It's absolute nonsense. That's not what it's about. It's about people. It's a people business. It's about being good with people, and it's about making a difference in people's lives. And if you might not be perfect with people, but if you want to improve on how you interact with people, and if you want to make a difference, this could be a great industry for you. And within that, there's going to be a role in there that could work really well for you. Don't be intimidated by the technical stuff. You can do that. I did it, and I'm not a Harvard graduate or anything like that. Come from humble beginnings, working class background, and there's a wide variety of people across the spectrum. So don't think just because you are said different person that you can't fit in this industry. You can, and actually, in all likelihood, you're probably going to enhance it because you're different. and you're unique because you are you. I'm me. No one can else can replicate me. So whoever you are, you can add value, and that's quite exciting.
Beautiful. Absolutely.
Do it.
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. Thank you for that sign off. It's been a pleasure talking to you today. Absolute pleasure. And thank you for sharing your journey on the Financial Planner Life podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been amazing, Sam. All the best.